we are again, folks. We're back to talking about a powerful man who has all of the wealth and the influence that anyone could really ever want, and yet he just has to take advantage of women. It's like a pipeline. It's like a success pipeline, and I still do not understand. Because it just kind of began as another headline, sensational, controversial, and destined to trend on social media. But beneath this clickbait exterior, the story that surfaced this month about Shannon Sharpe has struck a far deeper chord. He was once celebrated as a titan of football and a force in sports commentary, and Sharpe now finds himself at the center of a civil lawsuit alleging R-word coercion and emotional abuse. The woman behind the suit, Jane Doe, isn't famous, but the allegations she has made could reshape the public's understanding of power, celebrity, and consent in the digital age. So today we are diving into as much as I could find at the time of recording this. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cult, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. And I like to dabble in any type of abusive dynamic so that more people understand what that looks like. So today we are going to be talking about Shannon Sharpe. And there are a lot of very heavy allegations. So just trigger warning for you out there. We are going to be talking about DV, abusive relationships, R wording. So just please take care of yourself. If you need to skip this video today, that is totally fine. And I just want to share a very brief disclaimer. This is research that I have done based off of what's publicly available on the internet, and my opinion will be kind of colored in there. So do your own research, come to your own conclusion. And just before we jump right on in, I want to share that on this channel, we are inclined to believe women when they claim someone is abusing their power and them as a human being. So, although everything is alleged in this situation, I do want to express that it's kind of like you're guilty until proven innocent when it comes to claims like this. So, this is definitely a developing story. I do not know every single detail, but I'm doing my best to provide as much as I can. And I just want to make sure that we all understand in the comments that we are being very, very respectful of Jane Doe, because it is very, very difficult to speak out against someone who has harmed you, especially if they are more powerful, more wealthy, and are a celebrity. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. So, I am not someone that follows sports, but my husband does. And so I wanted to provide a little bit of background for you in case you don't know. So, Shannon Sharpe is a pro football Hall of Famer. So, very wealthy, very famous. Then he became a sports media personality, and he's facing this high profile civil lawsuit involving R word and SA allegations. The 56-year-old former NFL tight end, who is known for his illustrious playing career with the Denver Broncos and Baltimore Ravens, and for his post-retirement TV commentary, has been accused by a woman who will go by Jane Doe of multiple accounts of sexual violence during their relationship. The lawsuit was filed this month, April 2025, in Nevada State Court and seeks $50 million in damages, and it really paints a disturbing picture of the alleged abuse. Now, Sharpe is adamantly denying these allegations, calling them false and part of a shakedown attempt. And the case has obviously garnered widespread media attention, giving Sharpe's public stature and the serious nature of the crimes. It's raised a lot of questions about evidence, legal strategies, and the potential impact on Sharpe's career with ESPN and other endeavors. And Sharp's background kind of underscores why this lawsuit is making headlines. I mean, he was a 3 time Super Bowl champion and 8 time Pro Bowl selection. And he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011 after a 14-season NFL career in which he set numerous records for a tight end. And since retiring in 2003, he's become a prominent sports commentator, hosting popular shows like Club Shay Shay and co hosting Fox Sports debate show Undisputed until 2023. In the fall of 2023, Sharp left Fox Sports and soon joined ESPN, making regular appearances on its flagship debate show First Take. He's also been negotiating new media deals, reportedly seeking contracts worth over $100 million for his podcasting and media content. All of this professional success now sits under a cloud as the explosive allegations against him emerge. The plaintiff behind the lawsuit is a 24-year-old woman who was Sharp's girlfriend during a nearly 2-year period. She is proceeding under a Jane Doe pseudonym in court filings, but her identity has partially entered the public sphere through statements made by Sharp's legal team, which is really messed up. Really messed up. If someone is trying to protect their identity and then your representation is like, here she is, let's just dox her real quick, messed up. Notably, she is being represented by attorney Tony Busby, a high profile Texas lawyer known for taking on big name sexual misconduct cases, including representing accusers of NFL quarterback Deshaun Watson and music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The decision to file the case in Clark County, Nevada, is linked to the fact that both Sharp and the plaintiff had moved to Nevada in 2024, and several of the alleged assaults occurred at the woman's apartment in Las Vegas. There are no known criminal charges filed in relation to these allegations. This is a civil action. But the claims are extremely serious, accusing Sharp of R-word, assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Now, a lot of the discourse online talks about how they were in a relationship. He couldn't have R-worded her if they were in a relationship. She's just bitter. Why would she come out with this when he's about to get this massive deal? It all looks really shifty, it all looks really shady. And just because someone is in a relationship with someone does not mean they just automatically get consent. Even if you're in a long term, married, or otherwise with a person, that doesn't make you entitled to their body. And I just want to make that very, very, very clear. She's also a 24-year-old woman. Now, he is 56. That makes her more than half his age. There is absolutely a power dynamic here. Not only is she kind of newer to the adult world, but he is a famous footballer. He's in the Hall of Fame, for goodness sakes. He has connections and he has the financial means to do something and threaten her with certain things that we might not even know about. So I can't even imagine the fear that she was experiencing during this relationship with him. She may have felt like there was no real way out. So, according to this lawsuit, Shannon Sharpe and the woman met in 2023 at a gym in Los Angeles. At the time, Sharpe was 54 and she was 20. Sharpe allegedly incessantly pursued the young woman for several weeks at the gym. Eventually, she agreed to date him, and they entered what is described as a rocky consensual relationship that lasted nearly 2 years. During this period, the plaintiff claims that Sharpe's behavior was increasingly controlling, manipulative, and at times threatening. And I understand that some men are told to be very, very persistent on women, like break the woman down until she agrees, like really pursue her. But I think it's more of a red flag if you've told someone no, 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 no many times and they continue to pursue you. And so at some point, you're just like, Jesus, okay, fine, fine. I'll go on a date with you if you just like let it go a little bit. And it just feels like a red flag to me that he was so obsessed with this woman and wouldn't take no for an answer when he could effectively have any woman he wants. Now, early on, Sharp reportedly attempted to have the woman sign an NDA. Yeah, if anyone makes you sign an NDA before intimacy, that's a red flag. And she did resist this request. And the lawsuit states that Sharpe dropped the NDA demand after her pushback, and the relationship moved forward without such an agreement. But can you imagine, like, going into a relationship with someone and they're like, hold on, I want you to sign an NDA? I'd be like, what do you want to do to me? Is this some like 50 Shades of Grey BS? Like, what do you mean sign an NDA? That's dangerous. I don't think NDAs between like two personal people having a personal relationship should be allowed or be legal whatsoever. And it was this episode that foreshadowed the dynamic the women says started to develop. Sharpe wanted tight control over her interactions, and all of the information within their relationship. And as the relationship progressed, the woman alleges that Sharpe became very possessive and temperamental. She discovered, she says, that he had a quote, uncontrollable temper and could turn verbally abusive or threatening with little provocation. The complaint vividly asserts that Sharpe behaved as though he believed her to be his property, possessed and owned by him, and that he acted as if the laws did not apply to him and he could take what he wanted without consequence. It sounds a lot like Andrew Tate, the shit that he spews. Women are human beings. We get to decide what we want to do with our own bodies. And once again, just because there's a power dynamic, or just because someone has more money, or just because someone is providing financial stability for another person, does not entitle you to their body, or entitle you to treat them poorly, or entitle you to speak terribly to them or harm them, or otherwise harm them in any way whatsoever. But this is like what has set the stage for specific incidents that the woman is trying to detail. One early violent incident described in the lawsuit allegedly occurred in 2023 while they were still living in Los Angeles. The woman claims that on one occasion, she arrived late to Sharpe's home, and for whatever reason, this absolutely infuriated him. And Sharpe allegedly became violent with her and threatened to kill her because she wasn't on time. And this chilling threat is presented by the plaintiff as an example of how Sharpe would use intimidation to try to dominate her. She also alleges that Sharpe repeatedly threatened to choke and slap her during arguments, instilling this insane and intense fear for her safety. Tony Busby, her attorney, stated that the lawsuit lays out, quote, a pattern of intimidation, manipulation, and abuse, including allegations that Sharpe repeatedly threatened to choke and slap Jane Doe. These threats are a key part of the plaintiff's narrative that Sharpe created an environment of constant fear and control. The relationship is also said to have been punctuated by Sharpe's attempts to monitor and command the plaintiff's behavior. The woman claims that Sharpe demanded complete control over her time and her body, expecting her to be available at his call on his schedule and cater to his needs whenever he wanted. Like, no. Women have our own lives, our own goals, our own ambitions. Sometimes they don't want to. I love my husband, but sometimes I'm cool if I don't see him for a little bit. I need just a break. I need some time to myself. I need to connect to me. This dynamic is dangerous. And I'm going a little bit off script here, but there's this constant narrative circulating online, especially these days, that women should be controlled, that if left to our own devices, we can't be protected. We need to be controlled. There's some rhetoric from certain people that with the women's place is in the home, and that how dare we venture out and make our own money if we have our own financial stability. That means we're no longer dependent on men. And then there's this male loneliness pandemic, and that's not the case. Now, women are first and foremost humans. We are each individual humans, which means we are looking for something different within our relationships, right? You can't fit every woman into one box, just like you can't fit every man into one box. So this idea that women should just be available on a whim to the needs of their male counterpart or partner is utterly ridiculous and dehumanizing. Furthermore, a lot of women kind of like that idea of like, oh, I love a guy being obsessed with me. The TV show You just came out, and it always starts this discord online about people finding this murderer attractive and how he's like, oh, I want someone to be as obsessed with me as Joe is with Beck or this other character. And that type of romantic obsession is so, so, so dangerous. When you're so obsessed with someone, you just want to control them. That is a dangerous dynamic to be involved in. And so I implore any woman, especially a young woman, if you are experiencing that and thinking that that should be a turn on for you, tread with caution, use discernment. People have different levels of quote unquote obsession. People have different things that they find attractive, but you really need to move with discernment and just be cautious because this dynamic is inherently dangerous. So back to the script, y'all. Thank you for going on that journey with me. I just want this to be like an educational space, and I'm very passionate about people respecting and each other, but specifically women. Probably like I think 80% of the crimes against women happen by their partner, which is absolutely crazy and scary. So anyways, back to this story. Now, this lawsuit alleges that if she did not comply with his demands or if she challenged him, Sharpe would respond with anger or abuse. So, consenting with essentially a gun at your head or a threat in the air is not true consent. It's not informed consent. Just because you're dating somebody doesn't mean you have to be intimate with them or be controlled by them because you're afraid of how angry they'll get and that they could hurt you. That's not consent. So, for example, the complaint describes that Sharpe would fly into fits of anger if the plaintiff brought up his infidelity or other activities outside his relationship. Okay, so he can have other partners, but she can't. And if she asks him about it, he would go into a fit of rage. And then he allegedly became extremely jealous and would not tolerate her questioning him. At one point, according to the lawsuit, Sharpe even figured out how to gain access to the gated apartment complex where she lived without her permission, suggesting that he could just appear unannounced. And this heightened her sense of being and feeling very, very trapped and very, very unsafe. Another very disturbing allegation is that Sharpe would record their sexual encounters without her consent and then shared those recordings with others. What? I don't understand this when men are like so jealous that their partner might talk to another man, but they're very, very quick to like want to show her off in this really demeaning, degrading way and secretly film someone and then show it off to people. It's just disturbing because she didn't agree to be filmed during sex, yet Sharpe would clandestinely videotape them and then distribute at least some of these videos to third parties. And this claim not only implies a gross violation of privacy, but a potential tool of coercion, since Sharpe would have had explicit footage of her that she would have never wanted made public. It's basically collateral. Yeah, if you don't listen to me, if you don't do this with me now, like it's dangling a carrot. It's giving Nexium, where Keith Raniere made every woman provide collateral so that if they went against him, he would basically send that collateral to their friends, family, and loved ones. Oh, hi. You never come hang out when I'm shooting. That's nice. Cool. Now, it's unclear from the complaint who he showed the video to or for what purpose, but the existence of such recordings is a very significant point in the case. It suggests that there might be video evidence related to this strange dynamic within the relationship. But we're going to return to the subject of video evidence a little bit later because it has become a very contentious issue in the legal battle. In 2024, both Sharpe and the plaintiff separately relocated from California to Nevada. Sharpe's move may have been related to some career changes because after leaving Fox Sports, his base of operations shifted, though he did continue to work nationally. The plaintiff also moved to Nevada around that time, and she is currently a Nevada resident. By late 2024, both were living in the Las Vegas area, although not together. Now, this is setting the stage for the incidents that the plaintiff says were the breaking point of their relationship. One event referenced in the lawsuit is an incident in September 2024 that received a lot of media attention on its own. Shannon Sharpe accidentally began live streaming himself having sex on Instagram that month.
Put this dick in here. You know what I like? You know what I like? There you go. Right there. There you go, baby. There you go, baby. There you go, baby. That's my Michelle. That's my Michelle.
Yeah, buddy, I'm sure it was an accident. But he did later publicly apologize for the mishap, calling it an embarrassing mistake. Now, according to the plaintiff, she was not the woman in the video. Sharpe was apparently with someone else. And the plaintiff says that she felt humiliated upon seeing or hearing about Sharpe's very public, intimate encounter with another woman. Can you imagine? You are in kind of a weird dynamic of a relationship, and then suddenly he goes on live and you're like, "What's Babe up to?" Oh my god. Like I honestly don't even know what I do. I would definitely lose my that's for sure. Now, this incident caused her to pull away from Sharpe, growing more and more distant and upset about their relationship. It also reportedly led to confrontations between them about his infidelity. And we all know that when she questions him about his wrongdoing, he just bursts into fits of rage, allegedly. Take a drink every time I've said allegedly during this video. After the Instagram Live embarrassment, the plaintiff alleges that Sharpe sensed her trying to distance herself and reacted by starting to escalate his controlling behavior. Sharpe allegedly flooded her phone with calls in the aftermath, constantly ringing and messaging her. Feeling harassed and not ready to speak with him, the woman states that she frequently left Nevada to get away from Sharpe during this period, hoping that physical distance would provide some safety, really. Now, these actions by Sharpe, if accurate, demonstrate a pattern of not accepting her attempts to disengage and instead increasing the pressure on her. The lawsuit describes a violent episode in October 2024 as one of the two primary incidents of SA. According to the plaintiff, Sharpe just showed up and forced her into his car against her will, then drove her to her own apartment. Once there, the plaintiff alleges that Sharpe perpetuated a brutal sexual assault on her. He allegedly forced her to perform oral on him and then anally R-worded her without her consent. She describes resisting and even crying during the attack. The complaint provides some very graphic details, quoting Sharpe's words during the assault. At one point, as the woman was sobbing, Sharpe allegedly grabbed her head, made her look at him, and said, "Look at this. Look at my arm. I've got chills. That's how good this is." This statement, if true, is a chilling indication of Sharpe's state of mind during the alleged R word, appearing to derive pleasure or excitement from forcing himself on her because of her obvious distress. This is presented as a clear instance of non consensual sex accompanied by physical force and intimidation. Now, after this October 2024 assault, the plaintiff's lawsuit suggests that she was deeply traumatized and afraid. However, it appears that she did not immediately go to authorities or cut off contact with Sharpe completely. The reasons are not explicitly detailed, but often in abusive relationships, victims may hesitate to report due to fear, manipulation by the abuser, or hope that it was an isolated incident. The cycle of abuse can be complex, especially if Sharpe alternated violent episodes with apologies or continued exerting this emotional control towards her. The complaint implies that the relationship, however strained and horrific, limped on into late 2024, perhaps with decreasing contact, but not a clean break. And even if she did try to leave right away, unfortunately, the statistic is that it takes about 7 tries for someone to actually leave an abusive relationship because of all of the mental games, the power plays, and the fear. So, honestly, in the comments, like, any shaming of this woman will not be tolerated. The second major incident detailed in the lawsuit occurred in January 2025, and this appears to be the final straw that led the plaintiff to seek an end to the relationship. The complaint states that in early January, shortly after New Year's Day, Sharp contacted the woman and asked to come over to her apartment to give her a combined Christmas and birthday present. Her birthday is presumably around that time. She agreed to let him visit, possibly hoping for a peaceful exchange or maybe even some closure. However, once Sharp was inside her home, the plaintiff claims that he SA'd her again. This January encounter, Sharp allegedly initiated sex against her will and refused to wear a condom despite her objections. The details in the lawsuit indicate that she did not consent to intercourse and that Sharp ignored her refusals. This incident did not involve the same level of physical violence as the October R word, or at least that's, based on what's been described, but it was, according to her account, unquestionably non consensual and coercive. The lack of a condom adds another layer of violation, as it disregarded her safety and autonomy over her own body. After this alleged assault, it seems the plaintiff cut off the relationship for good, thankfully. Now, following the January incident, the plaintiff decided not to take action. It's not explicitly detailed in media reports what immediate steps she did take in the weeks after, whether she sought medical attention or told friends or family, or even contacted a lawyer right away. But by early 2025, she had engaged Tony Busby as her attorney. The lawsuit was then prepared and eventually filed in April of 2025. Now, it's worth noting that the complaint asserts, quote, a woman can say yes to consensual sexual relations with a man 90 times, but when she says no, even once, that no means no. The plaintiff is using this statement to prove that even if parts of their relationship were consensual, the moments that she refused, like in October and January, must be respected as non consent, and Sharp's alleged failure to accept no is why these encounters amount to R word. And I don't know why. I can't believe that we have to literally put that into such simple verbiage, but we do, because for some reason people think that if you're in a relationship with someone that R wording can't happen, which it absolutely definitely can. The pattern alleged is one where Sharp's behavior grew increasingly aggressive, from threats and controlling conduct to a first essay in October when she tried to pull away, to a second assault in January when she attempted to definitively engage. After 2025, the relationship was effectively over and the legal battle was about to begin. The plaintiff's lawsuit was filed on Sunday, April 20th, 2025, late in the evening in Clark County District Court, Nevada. By the next day, news of the filing had broken in the press. In the court papers, the woman is identified only as Jane Doe to protect her privacy, a very common practice in sensitive cases of SA. Shannon Sharpe is named as the sole defendant. The complaint sets forth causes of action including assault, SA, battery, sexual battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Each of these claims relates to the alleged incidents of non consensual acts and threats. The suit asks for a $50 million in damages, reflecting both compensatory damages for the suffering she claims and presumably punitive damages given the egregious nature of the alleged conduct, as well as Sharp's immense wealth. Nevada was chosen as the venue because of the key incidents, October and January, as well as other harassment that all occurred in Las Vegas, where both parties resided at the time. Additionally, Nevada's laws would govern the claims, and notably, Nevada does not have a statute of limitations problem here since the events are very recent. It's a civil case, meaning the plaintiff is seeking monetary compensation and legal accountability through the courts rather than a criminal prosecution, which could involve the state pressing charges and the possibility of jail time. It has not been reported that the plaintiff ever filed a police report or pursued criminal charges against Sharpe, which suggests that she has opted to handle this as a civil matter only. In some instances, victims choose the civil route if they feel a criminal case is unlikely to succeed or if they prefer to maintain more control over the process. The written complaint, which has been obtained by several media outlets, lays out the narrative that we just discussed. It describes how Sharpe met the plaintiff, pursued her, and then allegedly abused her trust and consent multiple times. It emphasizes the pattern of intimidation, manipulation, and abuse that Sharpe is accused of. And it highlights very specific claims that he threatened to choke, slap, and even kill her, that he insisted on dominating every aspect of her life, that he covertly recorded sexual acts, and ultimately that he R-worded her in October and again in January. The language in the complaint is strong. It portrays Sharpe as someone who is, quote, accustomed to getting what he wants and who fails to understand, unquote, that no means no, indicated that he acted with a sense of entitlement and impunity. Tony Busby, the plaintiff's attorney, has been very vocal about the case. In a statement emailed to various news outlets the day after filing, Busby said the lawsuit lays out a pattern of intimidation, manipulation, and abuse, including allegations that Sharpe repeatedly threatened to choke and slap her. This quote was reported by people like CBS News, LA Times, in order to try to confirm the core accusations. And Busby's statement is clearly meant to bolster his client's claims in the public eye and frame Sharpe as a predator who terrorized the victim. The lawsuit also quotes Sharpe's own alleged words and actions to strengthen the case. For example, it includes the explicit quote from the October assault, "Look at my arm, I've got chills," as he had allegedly forced her to do things she didn't want to do, and it's intended to demonstrate his mindset. It also references things like the Instagram Live incident and the NDA request that provided context that Sharpe was both reckless and trying to exert control in various ways. The inclusion of both those details in the complaint shows that the plaintiff's team wants to establish a consistent pattern of behavior by Sharpe and not treat each incident as isolated. The demands for $50 million is very high for an individual civil sexual assault case. Now, this figure likely reflects multiple factors: the severe emotional and physical trauma alleged, the punitive aspects of deterring such conduct, and Sharpe's earning capacity and net worth, which, given his media deals, NFL career, etc., is very substantial. The plaintiff is essentially arguing that Sharpe's actions warrant a very significant financial penalty. It's common in civil lawsuits to ask for a high number, both as a statement of seriousness and as a potential ceiling for eventual settlements or awards. Whether she would be awarded that full amount or any amount would depend on the outcome of litigation or negotiations, but it does signal that she and her attorney are prepared to aggressively pursue the case. And Tony Busby's involvement itself is telling. Busby is renowned for taking on big cases against famous or powerful men accused of sexual misconduct. He represented many of the women who accused NFL quarterback Deshaun Watson of sexual harassment and assault, a series of cases that ended in multiple settlements and huge publicity. He is also representing several women who have accused music mogul Sean Diddy Combs of sexual assault in late 2023. So, by bringing Busby on board, the plaintiff in Sharpe's case has a lawyer experienced in high stakes, high publicity litigation of this kind. Busby often litigates very aggressively and isn't shy about media engagement. In his initial statement on this case, Busby praised his client's courage, saying, quote, "I'm extremely proud to represent Jane Doe. It takes a great deal of courage to stand up against those with power, fame, and money. I look forward to pressing this case in court." Unquote. This indicates that Busby anticipates a fight and is ready to proceed through trial if necessary, rather than quietly settling unless a very favorable settlement for the plaintiff emerges. Another significant aspect is that Busby and the plaintiff's team have already begun using evidence to back up the allegations outside of the courtroom. They have signaled they possess recordings that support her story. Typically, A lawsuit's filing is just the first step. It gets the claims on record. But in the court of public opinion, both sides have begun presenting bits of evidence to try to sway perception. Now, Sharpe has vehemently denied all allegations of wrongdoing. Within a day of the lawsuit becoming public, Sharpe and his legal team launched a multi pronged response aimed at both the legal claims and the public narrative. On Monday, April 21st, right after the news broke, Sharpe took to social media to address the allegations. He posted a statement from his attorney on his official Twitter X account, and then later that day or the next, he also released a personal video message on Instagram.
To my family, friends, supporters, and colleagues, I want to speak to you directly and from the heart. This is a shakedown. I'm going to be open, transparent, and defend myself because this isn't right. This is all being orchestrated by Tony Busby, who has targeted Jay-Z. Tony Busby targets black men, and I believe he's going to release a 30-second clip of a sex tape that tries to make me look guilty and play into every stereotype you could possibly imagine. That video should actually be 10 minutes or so. Hey, Tony, instead of releasing your edit, put the whole video out. I don't have it, or I would myself. You know what happened, and you're trying to manipulate the media. The encounter in question took place during the day at her invitation, and now that appears to be a deliberate setup, coordinated by Gabby, also known as Carly on OnlyFans. Gabby and Tony Busby want $50 million. What they're getting is sued for defamation and trying to take me down. My career is all about real talk and honesty. I know my family and fans know exactly what this is about. And I'm going to be out there telling you whatever I need to say, just like I always do. I love all you guys.
Instagram.
To my family,
In these, Sharpe
friends,
did not mince words. He characterized the lawsuit as a baseless extortion attempt. This is a shakedown, he said in the video, directly accusing the accuser and her lawyer of trying to extract money and destroy his reputation unjustly. He expressed outrage at the claims, stating that he intended to fight them openly. Sharpe added that he would be open, transparent, and defend himself because this isn't right, unquote. He firmly stated that the allegations are false and that he would not simply pay to make them go away if they're untrue. Crucially, Sharpe also indicated that he plans to sue the accuser and Tony Busby for defamation in response to the lawsuit. In his video remarks, he said he would sue them for defamation and for trying to take me down. And this signals a very aggressive stance. Not only does he deny the claims, but he's going on the offensive, suggesting that the accuser's story is fabricated and has harmed his reputation, which, if proven false, could potentially be grounds for a countersuit. It's worth noting that filing a counterclaim for defamation in the same case is a strategy sometimes used to put pressure on an accuser, though such claims are difficult to win when the accuser can argue that they truly believe their allegations. Sharpe's messaging also targeted Tony Busby directly. He claimed that this is all being orchestrated by Tony Busby and alleged that Tony Busby targets black men. By saying this, Sharpe seemed to imply that Busby has an ulterior motive or pattern in going after high-profile black male celebrities, pointing perhaps to Busby's clients against Deshaun Watson, who is black, Diddy, and others. It is a provocative claim designed to cast doubt on the motives behind the lawsuit. Essentially, Sharpe is suggesting that Busby seeks out wealthy black men as defendants to pressure settlements or gain publicity, thus framing Sharpe as a potential victim of an opportunistic attorney. Busby, for his part, has strongly rejected this characterization. Sharpe's legal counsel in this matter is Lanny J. Davis, a well-known attorney and crisis manager. Lanny Davis has served as a lawyer for high-profile figures in the past, including, for example, acting as an attorney/spokesman for former President Bill Clinton and for Michael Cohen, a former attorney of Donald Trump. Davis brings both legal expertise and media savvy to Sharpe's defense. On April 21st, Sharpe posted a lengthy written statement from Davis to social media, and Davis also spoke at a press conference on April 22nd to elaborate on their stance. In the statement, Lanny Davis categorically denied the allegations on Sharpe's behalf. Davis wrote that Sharpe denies all allegations of coercion or misconduct, especially the gross lie of R word, and will not submit to what he sees as an egregious attempt at blackmail. He described the lawsuit in stark terms as a blatant and cynical attempt to shake down Mr. Sharpe for millions of dollars. And this language mirrors Sharpe's own shakedown claims and makes clear that the defense's position is that the accuser is lying for financial gain. Davis's statement also asserted that the relationship between Sharpe and the woman was entirely consensual. He provided some detail, claiming that even up until January 2nd, 2025, for example, up until the final days of the relationship, sexual interactions between Sharpe and the accuser were consensual. To bolster this, Davis included examples of explicit text messages that the woman allegedly sent to Sharpe. According to Davis, these messages demonstrate the accuser was an active participant in consensual sexual banter and activity. The statement says the messages show a broader pattern of graphic sexual communications initiated by the accuser herself. But once again, the second a woman says no, that means you need to respect the no. He summarized Sharpe's side of the story by saying, quote, "The evidence paints a clear picture. This was a consensual adult relationship that included role-playing, sexual language, and fantasy scenarios," unquote. In other words, Sharpe's lawyer acknowledges that some of the behavior, such as perhaps rough language or simulated scenarios, might look bad out of context, but insists it was part of consensual role play between two adults. And this is an important element of the defense. They're not flat out denying that certain conversations or recordings exist. In fact, they admit that Sharpe said at least some of the troubling words, but they are reframing them as some kind of consensual kink or fantasy rather than actual threats or assaults. One line from Davis's statement posted to Sharpe's Twitter account was particularly direct about the overall veracity of the suit. Quote, "It's filled with lies, distortions, and misrepresentations, and it will not succeed," unquote. In a press conference on Tuesday, April 22nd, Lanny Davis addressed one piece of evidence that had by then been released by the plaintiff's side, an audio recording of Sharpe speaking abusively. Davis did not deny that it was Sharpe's voice in the recording, nor did he claim the tape was fake. Instead, he provided context. Davis explained that Sharpe's threatening remark heard in that audio was made in the heat of the moment during an argument, and that Sharpe had no actual intent to physically harm the woman when he said it. Davis essentially asked the public, and eventually a jury, to view that comment not as a literal threat, but as an intemperate outburst not meant seriously. He emphasized that Sharpe never acted on any such words since the woman was not in fact choked. That particular incident, according to him, remained at the level of words. This strategy is consistent with the overall defense, acknowledge the kernel of truth that Sharpe said something ugly, but deny the criminal or abusive context and claim it was just fantasy, or by claiming it was just fantasy rather than a real threat or assault. Now, in a somewhat surprising move, Sharpe's attorney also disclosed that Sharpe had previously offered the accuser a settlement of around $10 million to resolve this dispute before it went to court. Lanny Davis revealed in the April 22nd press conference that in the last month or so, prior to the lawsuit's filing, Sharpe made a $10 million settlement offer to the woman. According to Davis, Sharpe was blindsided when, despite those negotiations, she went ahead and filed the civil complaint on a Sunday without agreeing to a deal. This admission serves a few purposes. For Sharpe's public image, it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, it might make some ask, if he's innocent, why would you offer $10 million in the first place? But on the other hand, Sharpe's team likely shared this to portray the accuser as greedy or unreasonable, implying that she had a chance to quietly resolve this matter for a very large sum, but instead she is pushing for more, which suggests an ulterior motive or extortionate intent. And indeed, Davis confirming that the plaintiff refused the $10 million settlement offer is meant to bolster their claim that she's after a bigger payday, or she wants to damage Sharpe beyond just compensation. Now, from a legal standpoint, mentioning a settlement offer publicly is very unusual. Usually, settlement talks are totally confidential. But Sharpe's team evidently decided that making it known might win sympathy or sow doubt about her motives. Tony Busby later confirmed that such an offer was made and declined, which he framed as his client standing on principle rather than money. Sharpe's legal team has stated that they will be filing a counterclaim or separate lawsuit accusing the woman of defamation and possibly fraud or extortion. Davis, at the press conference, concluded by saying a counterclaim will be filed, accusing the plaintiff of making, quote, willful and vicious accusations that are false. This threat of counter litigation is a clear sign that Sharpe intends to fight in court rather than settle, at least for now. It also serves as a warning shot to other potential accusers or to the plaintiff herself that Sharpe will make this as difficult and as public as possible. In defamation terms, however, Sharpe would have to prove that the woman is lying and doing so with malice, essentially turning the case into a referendum on her credibility. Now, as the lawsuit is getting underway, both sides have already begun sharing pieces of evidence to support their version of events. These include audio recordings, references to video footage, and of course, the text messages. The strategic release of such material is shaping public perception and will likely play a crucial role if the case does go to trial. Perhaps the most immediately shocking piece of evidence to emerge is an audio recording released by the plaintiff's attorneys in late April 2025. On April 22nd, the same day Sharpe's team held their press conference, Tony Busby's firm shared with media a brief audio clip of a phone conversation allegedly between Sharpe and the accuser, in which a man believed to be Sharpe makes a violent threat. In the recording, the woman, identified by Busby as his client Jane Doe, can be heard telling Sharpe not to manipulate her, and Sharpe reacts extremely aggressively. He says, quote, if you say that word one more time, I'm gonna effing choke the S out of you when I see you, unquote. The woman replies that she doesn't want to be choked, to which the man chillingly responds, yes, you do. I don't think you have a choice in the matter. Now, this exchange, if authentic, corroborates the plaintiff's claims that Sharpe threatened to choke her and exhibited a coercive and violent demeanor. It's a disturbing snippet suggesting that Sharpe felt entitled to physical harm or force her to do whatever he wants. The audio evidence serves a few purposes for the plaintiff's side. It backs up her allegation that Sharpe threatened to choke her, one of the specified claims in the lawsuit. It undercuts the narrative that Sharpe's vile words were in a context of mutual kink, and it also likely will make a strong emotional impact on a jury if played in court. Hearing Sharpe's tone and language could influence jurors' perceptions of his character and lend credence to the accuser's story that she was genuinely afraid. Another major point of contention is the existence of video recordings of Sharpe's sexual encounters. Recall that the plaintiff claimed Sharpe recorded their sex without her consent. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It appears at least one such recording is now in play as evidence. Sharpe himself brought this issue forward in his video statement, warning about what he expects Busby to do with it. Sharpe claimed that Busby plans to release a 30-second clip of tape that tries to make me look guilty and play into every stereotype you could possibly imagine. He's really trying to get ahead of it. Sharpe said that the clip will be deceptive and taken out of a longer context that would vindicate him. In essence, Sharpe is saying that there is a sex tape or multiple from their relationship, and he fears the accuser's side will selectively edit a short piece of it to falsely portray him as committing sexual assault. Okay, but you also filmed her without her consent. In his Instagram video, Sharpe directly addressed this, saying that he wants the full 10-minute recording to be released publicly, not just a short snippet, because he believes the full video will exonerate him when viewed in context. I just don't think that's the case. But it does suggest the existence of a particular encounter that was recorded, most likely by Sharpe, given he's totally aware of the full-length version, but it's not confirmed whether this recording corresponds to one of the alleged assaults or other sexual encounters between them. However, Sharpe's anxiety about a damning 30-second clip implies that in some part of the video, the optics or the audio look very, very bad for him. perhaps the woman is seen as resisting or in distress. Sharpe is preemptively arguing that if you saw the whole thing, you'd realize it was consensual and suggest that she was maybe a willing participant until or up to that moment. This is speculative since the actual content hasn't been released, but that's the scenario or picture that he is trying to paint. Tony Busby responded to Sharpe's claims about the video in a statement to the media. Busby confirmed that an incredibly damning video does indeed exist. He asserted that the video, which will be played to the jury, is extremely problematic for Mr. Sharpe. Busby called Sharpe's allegation that the video would be misleadingly edited was demonstrably false, but also desperate. In other words, Busby is saying that the video is organically damning on its own, not something that needs deceptive editing, and he fully intends to use it as evidence in court. He implies that Sharpe's team only mentioned it publicly to try to get ahead of its impact, which Busby believes will fall flat, meaning the attempt to downplay it just won't work at all. Neither side has described exactly what's in this video, but given the context, it might be footage of one of the alleged R-word incidents. If Sharpe indeed filmed the October encounter without her consent, that tape could literally show parts of the assault, which who would want to watch that? Who would want to watch that? I think he also wants to release it to partly humiliate her. And it could also be another encounter not connected to the R words where perhaps the consent was just like murky or maybe a little withdrawn. Busby's strong language suggests it aligns with the plaintiff's narrative and is very incriminating. With Sharpe wanting the full length video released, it suggests that he thinks there's context on earlier in the footage that makes it look consensual. Like maybe she was agreeable at first, but then said stop at some point, which raises complicated questions of whether he honored her no or what really happened. I mean, this tug of war over tape is somewhat unusual in that Sharpe is effectively confirming its existence and content to a degree by arguing about it, whereas often such evidence would be unveiled in discovery or trial, maybe more unexpectedly. But both sides appear very confident in their interpretation, a sign that the video could become a centerpiece of the trial. And in that case, my heart breaks even more for Jane Doe because who wants to have a tape you didn't know was being recorded become public information? Hopefully, if that's shown in the trial, they don't release it publicly. Now let's get to these text messages because these text messages have everyone buzzing online. Sharpe's team referenced very explicit text messages from the accuser as evidence of consensual conduct. In fact, Davis's statement included examples, though those specific messages haven't been published verbatim in the media for some privacy reasons. But the gist is that the accuser allegedly sent Sharpe some messages describing sexual desires or fantasies, possibly including rough or submissive themes. By highlighting these, Sharpe aims to show that any aggressive sexual talk or behavior from him was something that she was willingly participating in or even requesting as part of their intimate life. Busby responded to the text message releases by pointing out that those messages predated the alleged assaults. In his view, texts from an earlier phase of the relationship, when perhaps things were consensual, do not excuse what happened later. He essentially accused Sharpe's team of cherry picking flirty or sexual texts to mislead the public. Busby noted that the plaintiff ultimately did withdraw consent in the incidents in question, and that consenting earlier doesn't mean consenting forever, and this is true and a crucial legal and ethical point. A person can consent to certain acts or at certain times and still have the right to say no at a later time, even with the same partner or within the same intimate session. That complaint itself made the point with the 99 times yes, 1 time no means no line. So the text messages will be part of evidence, but they are context, not definitive proof that no assault occurred. They do, however, serve Sharpe's narrative a bit that the accuser was a willing partner most of the time and only later framed things as non-consensual. Another aspect of how evidence and information are being handled is the accusation that Sharpe's camp doxed the accuser. In Lanny Davis's written statement to the media, he actually named the plaintiff who had chosen to file as Jane Doe. This means that Sharpe's side publicly revealed her identity. which is disgusting. Tony Busby criticized this move, saying that Sharpe chose to dox his client and attempt to humiliate her into silence. Typically, an accuser might use Jane Doe to keep her name out of headlines, though once a case is in civil court, the defendant does have the right to know who is suing and it may not remain confidential forever. However, making her name public so early is seen by Busby as an intimidation tactic. It may deter the woman or subject her to public harassment. Sharpe's team likely sees it as simply being transparent or preventing what they might consider false accusations from hiding behind anonymity. But in any case, it adds to the fight between the two legal teams, and it's honestly just disgusting that you would dox someone. I mean, she's filing as Jane Doe because she doesn't want the public to know who she is, and you're telling the public who she is. Like, give me a break. So where do things stand now? By this month, by recording of this video, the evidence publicly knows includes one audio recording strongly supporting the plaintiff's claims of threats, the promise of a damning video supporting her claims of SA, some explicit text messages which Sharpe says supports his defense of consensual role play, and the overall testimony of each party, which conflict entirely on the crucial point of consent in the October and January incidents. The plaintiff's team has the burden of proof in the civil case by preponderance of evidence. They appear to be preparing to show evidence that Sharpe's behavior crossed the line in sexual violence. Sharpe's team seems prepared to concede that some edgy things may have happened, but maintain that they were all consensual or not as they appear. And in the public eye, there's discourse everywhere. People saying it's just a he said, she said. Public opinion might be swayed by hearing Sharpe's harsh words on tape or by whatever might leak or be described regarding the video. It's a really sensitive situation because it involves some very serious allegations and two very different portrayals of the relationship. As of recording this video, Sharpe still remains a public figure on ESPN, with the company making no comment on what's going on, and no sponsors have publicly distanced themselves yet, which is concerning. But if the case does produce more damning evidence, or if public sentiment turns really sharply against Sharpe, no pun intended, ESPN could face a lot of pressure to take action, like reduce his role or suspend him. And so this network will have to balance the principle of innocent until proven liable or guilty with its corporate image and the sensitivity of the issue. But so far, ESPN's no comment approach suggests that they're trying to cautiously wait and see. So, what do you think about this situation? I mean, there's so much discourse online about where do you draw the line between maybe having some kind of dominance kink or want to be a little more rough in the bedroom in your personal intimate life, but it can be scary where you draw that line. You have to be discerning. You have to be fully aware of your boundaries. And the thing is, and this is kind of what I'm wondering with this case, is Jane Doe is so young. She was 20 years old when she met him. She may not have been intimately experienced. So sometimes you don't know something's a boundary or you don't know that you don't like something until you try it. So if you have one person who really likes something that's rough and a little scary, someone agrees to try it and then decides, not for me, I don't like that. But this other person keeps thinking that they want to escalate it and force it on the other person. That's not truly informed consent. So I'm concerned that maybe in the beginning she was more open to certain things, but as their relationship moved forward and things got a little messier, a little kinkier, a little rougher, maybe she started feeling like, I don't like this, but I don't know how to get out of it. Or if we keep things more vanilla, he gets really angry. It feels like she's constantly being forced to pass her own personal comfort, her own personal boundaries in order to appease this man who has money, power, and influence. And of course, innocent until proven guilty, but it's so hard for any victim, survivor to speak out. So I'm always inclined to believe allegations when they come. And when someone gets on the offensive, to me, that's a big red flag. And I don't think it's advisable by most attorneys for someone involved in an accusation like this to like speak out and hyper defend themselves. So to me, it's all a red flag. It's all problematic. I don't buy what Sharp is selling. So thank you guys for watching. I would really love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below, and let me know if you watched all the way to the end by, I guess, dropping like a football down in the comments. I hope that's not insensitive. Just drop any emoji down in the comments. Please take care of yourself and just know that no means no. No means no. You're allowed to say no. If something ever makes you uncomfortable, even if you're about to try it and then you change your mind last minute, your decision still needs to be respected. So please know that. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I know this was kind of a heavy one, and I will try to keep you as updated as possible because this is such a brand new situation, a brand new case. So, yeah, please take care of yourself. And thank you all so much. Stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. I'll see you in my next video very soon. Bye.